On today's show, Jalen Green returns to the lineup and leads the Houston Rockets to a 110-104 win against the Miami Heat. Why did Jalen Green's return to the lineup help the Rockets offense so much? Amen Thompson looking good, like he's going to be an immediate impact player for this Rockets team. A look at the final rotations we can expect on opening night and so much more. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
Throw it up to Jalen Green.
Sengun here in the short row. Oh my, that's the no-look.
Jabari for three and the win. Yeah!
Look at Tari, Eason.
Here comes Tari.
No!
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
The Houston Rockets select Amen Thompson and Cam Whitmore.
One thing I have never done is not made the playoffs, and so we want to take that step here as well.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets back guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for making LOR part of your day every single day. What a game to close out the preseason for the Houston Rockets. 110-104 win against the Miami Heat, who were, they were missing Jimmy Butler, so the Heat weren't at full strength. But still a really good win against a very good Miami Heat team who definitely, they took this game seriously, at least for the first half. As to do with preseason games, is some teams will, take them seriously. Others will use them as a dress rehearsal. Others, not so much. And the Miami Heat still shut down a lot of their key guys after halftime. But we got a good half of basketball in, and even past that, kind of to evaluate this final game of where this Houston Rockets team is kind of at. Finishing 4-1 in the preseason is a pretty solid metric. We're going to get into some of the flow here in this game against Miami because the Rockets did look, they jumped out to a much quicker start, I will say. And Fred VanVleet spoke about that post-game, saying that because the last two games and kind of the slow starts that the Rockets have had, Fred wanted to come out and just, really kind of force the issue early. He had, I want to say it was 10 points by the end of the first quarter. It may have been slightly more than that, but I want to say it was 10 points for Fred by the end of that first quarter. He had a couple threes, had a couple other buckets on his way to a really strong night, finishing with 20 points on 7 of 10 shooting. He had 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and a block, and only 1 turnover in his 29 minutes of run. And it was kind of nice because you saw, Fred, coming out, being more aggressive, really kind of hunting his shot a little bit more in that first quarter. And then Jalen kind of picked up the slack for scoring as well. So Jalen, got a couple got a couple buckets early, like 1 or 2 buckets early, and then closed out the quarter in a really strong way. It, had the buzzer beater to get the Rockets within 1 at the end of the first quarter, just the buzzer beater 3-pointer. And then where Jalen really took off was in that second quarter. Basically, Ime decided to run Jalen Green with a bunch of the second stringers, and it was just like Jalen unleashed. He wound up scoring like 8 points there, a 4-point play near the top of the second quarter. Just a lot of freedom within that offense where I don't think he had to worry about, am I, pick and roll with Sengun, I'm going to try to get him the ball, or, Jabari's open, let me kick it. I think the mentality for Jalen in that stretch was exclusively, I'm going to score the rock. And it looked really good. I think one thing that really stands out about Jalen, a couple things stand out about his return to the lineup and why things look disjointed without him and why they look really good with him. First of which is, it's really nice having that secondary ball handler out there in the lineup because unfortunately for the Rockets, when they had the first game against the Spurs with no Jalen Green and they put Reggie Bullock in that starting lineup, you're down to only one ball handler at that point. Now, Jabari can handle the rock and create for himself a little bit better than he could. That does not make him a quote-unquote ball handler. Sengun's not really a ball handler either. You can run the offense through him in the half court, and it can look good doing that, but he's not the guy who's going to be dribbling, running pick and rolls, setting up other players. It's a fine line between what he does and what like a traditional ball handler can bring to the table. Reggie Bullock, not a ball handler. So basically, you go through the Rockets starters from that game, and you realize Jaylen Green as a secondary ball handler opens up so much more for the offense. And it really felt that way here against the Heat, is having two guys in Fred and Jalen who are capable of the drive and kick game. Even Dillon Brooks, to a lesser extent, who had plenty of opportunities to pump fake a three and then drive and kick it out to the next guy on the floor. That's what stands out about the Rockets starting lineup and how well those pieces complement each other. Dillon and Jabari can drive and kick, right? But they're not going to be really the guys who are going to break down a defense when the shell is still formed. You got to use Fred and his driving ability, his creation ability, or Jalen to really kind of collapse the defense first, and then you can get to those additional drive and kicks. So that was number one, is just having the secondary ball handler back out there with Jalen Green was a lot nicer in this game. And then number two for Jalen, it feels like he has this calmness to his game now. Last year, and obviously his rookie year, it felt like he's, is very much, I got to go 90 miles an hour. I got to go, as fast as I possibly can to beat a defender. Whereas now, it's almost like he understands, kind of fully, hey, my first step is quicker than anybody else. Like, I can get wherever I want on the floor. I just have to know what I want to do with the ball first. And you're seeing him have these moments where he sees. It's like his processing is speeding up to match his actual speed, because he'll see, this moment where the defense kind of opens where there's a wave, and he's like, oh, okay, cool, that's my opening. And he just beats his defender off the dribble and coasts in for a layup at the rim. Very easy buckets that way. Or even his three-pointer in that first quarter. Very patient, tried to attack, dribbled the ball back out for a second. The defender left too much of a gap, and Jalen just elevated for three. He's still insanely explosive, and he's still easily the fastest guy on the floor pretty much at all times. But there's a level of confidence and a level of calm that is now a part of his game that feels much different than last year. Again, he had 17 points by halftime, finished the game with 20 points. So only 3 points there scored in the second half. So that's still one of those things with Jalen where he can get really, really hot for a quarter or two. But it's still going to probably be the next step for him, is getting that consistency where he can stay hot over the course of an entire game rather than waning, in the second half, or, struggling in the first half and showing up in the second half, whatever. Because this was a game where, again, 17 points in the first half, only 3 the rest of the way, but still a really strong performance for Jalen Green. 20 points on 6 of 15 shooting, 3 of 7 from behind the arc, was 5 of 5 at the free throw line. He had 4 rebounds, he had an assist, he had a steal, and only 2 turnovers in his 28 minutes of run. And in his return to the lineup, he went ahead and took a chance to seize the Locked On Rockets a Player of the Game award. So that's who it goes to for this one, the 110-104 win against the Miami Heat. Coming up, I want to get into some of the defensive things that really stand out about this team, or stood out about this team against the Miami Heat, as well as kind of a crazy defensive stat to really show what this team is going to be capable of this season, as well as we got to talk about Amen Thompson and how good he has looked and the role that he's going to have on this Rockets team this year. It's all coming up here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get into the action this NFL and NBA season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place just a $5 bet. That means $5 gets you $200, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Right now, we can take a look at the Houston Rockets over-under win total prediction over at FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, it's at 31.5. I'm absolutely taking the over on that. I think Rockets getting 32 or more wins is practically a guaranteed outcome this season. So go check that out if you want to check out any other odds. There's spreads, player props, over-unders, so much more on an app that is so easy to use. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon for the start of the NFL season and the NBA season right around the corner. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. It's that time of year. The Locked On Ultimate NBA season preview is here, a 6-episode series with all 30 of our Locked On NBA team shows. From contenders to tankers, we go in depth into the biggest storylines heading into the season. Catch all 6 episodes on Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. This year, the Rockets graduated. Oh, so proud. From the tankers category, which is the bottom rung of those 6 shows, into the what's next category alongside the Atlanta Hawks, the Utah Jazz, the Orlando Magic, and the Chicago Bulls. It was a ton of fun. Go check out the episode. It's on the YouTube channel, the podcast feed, all that stuff. What I want to tackle here is just how different the Rockets feel as a defensive team this year. So many of the things so many better things stand out defensively about this team. And it's kind of like a funny contrast, I guess, to look back at the Spurs game where you had your vets sitting out with no Fred, no Dillon, and kind of the struggles that team faced. And then you go to this game and you're like, oh, it really is that simple. Like, you add 2 all-NBA caliber plus defenders to your starting lineup, and it just kind of elevates the entirety of the defense. And it's so many small things, right? It's the way that, you know, a player will be posting up or will have the ball at the elbow, and Fred will be the nearest defender and dig at the ball to really, and it might take, you know, all it might do is, you know, have the player kind of shift from one side to the other, or have to lift the ball up, you know, away from where Fred is like snatching at it or whatever. It might only kill 1 or 2 seconds on the shot clock, but those 1 or 2 seconds is all you need to blow up a play, or to mess up the timing on a connection between, you know, a pass between 2 players, or to shave off another second or 2 before you can get a 24-second shot clock violation. It's all those little things that mount up over the individual course of a defensive possession, right? Dillon Brooks, you know, bumping chests with Tyler Hero on a drive, knocking him off his spots, right? Trying to make him a little bit more uncomfortable so that he just doesn't get whatever he wants with no pushback, right? You know, so I think that watching this Rockets team kind of handle the defensive assignments, they did a really good job, I thought, against the Miami Heat and against the starters. I mean, they wound up holding Kevin Love 1 of 4 shooting, Caleb Martin 2 of 6, Bam was 4 of 6, and there were a couple moments where Bam got some guys in some foul trouble for sure. Jabari Smith Jr. 2 early, very quick fouls, both trying to deal with Bam Adebayo, Sengun picking up a foul or 2 here and there trying to guard Bam. But Kyle Lowry just 2 of 4 shooting, Tyler Hero 4 of 9. It really felt like the Rockets did a decent job guarding that starting unit, switching out on different guys. There were moments where Alperen Sengun was switched out onto Tyler Hero and did just fine, or guarded him on a drive and blocked him. It was a sequence of possessions. It was 3 possessions in a row in like the second quarter where Alp was guarding Hero on a drive and blocked him, was guarding Kyle Lowry on a drive and then blocked him, and then was guarding Tyler Hero on a perimeter possession on a switch and played it perfectly to where Tyler didn't. He was like, all right, I don't have the advantage. And they decided to try to dump the ball in to Bam Adebayo, who had Dillon Brooks switched onto him, I believe. And even Dillon Brooks did a great job leveraging, you know, and using his strength and trying to like get up and under Bam Adebayo so that he didn't get taken advantage of in the post. And it's just really cool to see how the different defensive pieces were working, and how Alp was recognizing, okay, if Fred is switched on to Bam, then as soon as they try to get the mismatch and throw the ball into Bam, I have to rotate over, and somebody's got to then cover my man. Kind of that, like a little bit of a scram switching model. And there were a couple times that the Rockets successfully scram switched where Fred would get switched onto a much bigger player, and then Dillon would recognize it, and Dillon would be guarding, say, like Tyler Hero. So then Dillon would communicate with Fred, hey, go pick up this smaller guy. I've got the big guy. And it's just cool to see that level of, again, you know, cohesiveness, defensive communication, all kind of playing out at the same time. I wanted to give Alp some serious credit for this game, though, because he had a major bounce back. 16 points on 6 of 16 shooting. He kind of struggled there in the first quarter again, and then he really kind of found his way, found his groove in that second quarter and moving on in this game. The referees aren't being great with the whistle towards him so far this season. Last year, it felt like he was a foul magnet, getting whatever he wanted, and this year it feels like he cannot buy a whistle. So that's been kind of throwing him off a little bit, where he'll go and he'll absorb or receive contact, and it messes with his shot. But otherwise, still, strong game. Made it to the free throw line 6 times, hit 4 of them. He had 12 rebounds in this game, 5 of which were offensive boards, 3 assists, and 4 blocked shots. So a really, really strong all-around game for Alperen Sengun. A nice way for him to kind of close out the preseason strong going into this regular season. I do want to share some other individual thoughts about other players from this game, as well as taking a look at what we can expect the lineups to be on opening night for your Houston Rockets. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Look, there's a lot of uncertainty going on in the world today, and it's important to be prepared, whether it's wildfires happening across the United States, whether it's hurricanes, earthquakes. These types of natural disasters can lead to supply chain shortages for medications or the inability to get medications in simply a timely manner. Enter the Jase case, because the Jase case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your Jase case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. And I know for me, my unique needs, I'm a type 1 diabetic and I'm an asthmatic. So Jase Medical offering the ability to customize your Jase case with dozens of add-on medications. Just choose the medications that best fit you and your family's needs. And also, hey, what about your loved ones, right? You want to make sure they're taken care of. Right now, you can get gift cards. Buy a gift card for a family member or one of your loved ones so that they can get their own Jase case so that they can feel prepared for whatever comes next. Go to jasemedical.com, enter code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at Jase Medical, JASE Medical.com. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Let's really quickly hit the couple other forwards in the Houston Rockets lineup before going to kind of the bench impact of one Amen Thompson, and then taking a look at what we can assume to be the Houston Rockets rotations moving forward into the regular season. For Dillon Brooks in this game, strong defensive contributions, had 3 steals, really capable on that end, as we know he is. He was 2 of 3 inside the arc, and then he was 1 of 7 behind the 3-point line. So, it's unfortunate having Dillon Brooks take an equivalent amount of 3-pointers as Jalen Green did offensively out of the starters. A few of those threes felt a little forced. I don't mind the threes that come within the flow of the offense. If Dillon Brooks gets 10 plus 3-pointers every night because those are the threes that the offense is generating, fine. But the ones that are kind of contested or ill-advised 3-pointers where there's still time left on the shot clock or you could have maybe gotten a better shot, those are the ones that I don't necessarily need to see as many of from Dillon. So 1 of 7 from him. You'd like to see that number be a little bit better moving into the regular season, but small potatoes, not horrendous in the grand scheme of things. And then Jabari Smith Jr., really quiet night for him. 7 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, only 3 of 8 shooting. And it felt like it was Jabari's turn to take a backseat offensively, right? Fred got it going early. Then Jalen Green picked it up at the end of the first quarter, top of the second. Alp kind of found his way along the rest of the game. And Jabari hit a couple shots here and there. He had a 3-pointer. He had a couple different pull-up middies that, again, just look, when he faces up a defender and pulls up, it looks basically unguardable. He had a couple of those, but other than that, not a ton of offense for Jabari in this game. And he didn't need it because, again, Fred had it going, then Jalen had it going. And I really do hope that with this kind of equal opportunity vibe offensively, even in this game, Jabari didn't feel nearly as uninvolved as he has in games in the past with Steven Silas, because in those games, Jabari might have only gotten the 4 3-point attempts that he got, and so he might have finished the game 1 of 4. He's still got a couple, a handful of opportunities here and there to get to his shots, to get to his sweet spots on the floor. And if there's ever a point where the Rockets hit a serious lull offensively, I just hope that they're able to recognize, hey, okay, Fred and Jalen had it going in the first half tonight, and maybe they, the bucket starts to dry up a little bit in the third quarter. Maybe we can go check on Jabari and see if he can pick up the slack, right? That's the only thing that I hope happens, is because, maybe the guards start the game hot, but maybe they can't finish the game, or vice versa. Maybe the guards are struggling in the beginning of the game, so you have to, get Jabari, Sengun, those guys involved early. I just hope that they're able to recognize, when the well kind of dries up offensively with other guys, and they're able to still share the love and give Jabari his points, offensively to contribute when he can. And then Amen Thompson. God. Guys, Amen is looking absolutely insane. So he finished the game 19 points on 6 of 9 shooting. Nice. 0 of 1 from three-point land. He got to the free throw line 9 times. It was 7 of 9 on his free throw attempts. He had 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2 steals in 25 minutes off the Rockets bench. So he was the high minutes man off the Rockets bench. And the Rockets used him in a variety of ways. First off, he is very clearly going to be your first sub off the bench, and that'll kind of dovetail into our rotations discussion here in just a second. He's your first guy off the Rockets bench, and Ime even trusted, and we finally saw, and this was, again, one of my favorite lineups that I was most looking forward to, was the Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Amen Thompson lineup. And Ime even spoke about the fact post-game that when you have a point guard who is as big as Amen Thompson, who can guard, 1 through 3 and even some 4s at times, it allows you to be able to do a lot with your lineup flexibility. So we saw, those 3 guards, then Dillon Brooks, and then Alperen Sengun out there to close out the first half of basketball. And that lineup had a lot of versatility to it because you had 3 guys who were all, great drive and kick threats who could, collapse a defense and really kind of get things going. So I was excited to see that lineup, and even more so just excited to see Amen Thompson really figuring out what he can do on the basketball floor, because he's out there still just learning and understanding how aggressive he can be. It was really funny watching him in the fourth quarter against like the Heat second and third stringers, just deciding, I can just get to the basket at will, can't I? And then he just did it. So it's like watching it's kind of like watching like a bird fly for the first time or something, where it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. This is easy. I can do this now. Because Amen Thompson just recognizing and realizing so many of the crazy things that he can do on the basketball court. Speaking of the craziest things happening on the basketball court, I want to highlight one pass from Amen and the one play that took place between Amen and Alperen Sengun. First, there was a play where Dillon Brooks had to pass the ball to a cutting Amen Thompson who cut into the paint. Or I apologize. I actually think it was Jalen. So Jalen hit cutting Amen in the paint at one point in this game. And Amen had 2 defenders. Like he had his defender and then Jeff Green's defender was like draped all over him. And as soon as he caught the ball in the paint, 2 defenders on his back, he's facing the corner that Jalen just passed out of. And he reaches around the defender on his right side and immediately does this no-look bounce pass directly behind him to the opposite corner. And the ball found Jeff Green, and Jeff was a little hesitant and didn't wind up pulling the trigger on a shot. But the pass was absolutely bananas. And watching it happen in real time, I have no idea how Amen even, seriously, eyes in the back of his head. And then another one involving Amen and Alperen Sengun. Amen Thompson crashes in, gets, tries to get an offensive rebound and manages to tip a basketball over towards Alperen Sengun, who is also still in the paint. And Alpe's got his back to the basket. The ball kind of like pops out a little bit towards the free throw line, and Alpe kind of recovers it, but doesn't ever really take full possession of it because he basically recovers a loose ball. And on a loose ball, issues a touch pass kind of behind him at an angle where if Alpe is looking at 12 o'clock, the pass went to 5 o'clock on the dial and back towards Amen Thompson for Amen Thompson to elevate and get the offensive putback, the 2 points easy at the bucket. My jaw hit the floor on that pass. It was ridiculous. And between Alpe and Amen Thompson, the Rockets are going to have some insane highlight level passes this season. So just be on the lookout for those. And I want to know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Who's going to have the craziest pass this season? Is it going to be Amen Thompson or is it going to be Alperen Sengun? Let me know in the comments down below. Last thing that I want to highlight here, the rotations, which it feels like this was, Ime's talked a couple different times about this game being kind of a dress rehearsal. So we really got a look at kind of, I think, who the core rotation guys are going to be and how the substitution patterns are going to look. Now, again, health permitting, those minutes that went to Jeff Green, I think would normally be minutes committed to Tari Eason. That said, they did still get a look at Jeff Green playing out there as the 4 alongside Jock Landale. And even at one point, they played Jabari Smith Jr. with those two guys. So Jabari playing the 3 in that lineup, which I made the prediction that at some point this season, we're going to see Ime go big. We're going to see Ime go big with like Alp and Jock Landale out there at the same time, and then slotting Jabari at like the 3. Like, we're going to see that at some point this year, because as much as Ime likes to switch everything and go small, we also know that he likes to go big and really utilize his bigs at times. So I like that we're kind of learning that about Ime. And one of the bigger takeaways just from the entirety of preseason is Ime's not afraid to experiment. He's not afraid to throw different lineups out there and see kind of what's what. At one point in this game, he threw out a lineup of the entire bench brigade. So it was Amen Thompson, Reggie Bullock, Jae'Sean Tate, Jeff Green, and Jock Landale, which felt awful because there were no play finishers in that lineup. Remarked on it during the game, but it just felt like, and it felt like at times, they get a drive and kick with Amen, and then a drive and kick with Jae'Sean Tate, and then Reggie Bullock would like pump fake a 3 and then dribble and pass to the next guy, and then Jeff Green would drive and kick, and it's just nobody out there wanted to actually take the shot, unfortunately. There were a couple possessions that got really disjointed, really clunky, because there were so many guys that were great connective pieces in that lineup, but Reggie Bullock was really the only like play finisher, and even then it has to be a shot, right? Not necessarily I'm going to attack and pull up and elevate, and even Reggie didn't get, a super clean look during that stretch. So not a great lineup there, but again, not afraid to experiment. So quick takeaways as to what we can expect for the lineup, the rotations going to opening night. Amen Thompson is your number 1 guy off the bench, for sure. That was the first substitution by Ime, and then later he came in with Jae'Sean Tate and Jock Landale for Dillon Brooks and Alperen Sengun. He left Fred and Jabari in for a majority of that first quarter, and it really looks like his goal is sub Jalen out early, get Amen in there, and then sub Fred out later on, so that there's always one of, Amen or Jalen so there's 2 out of the 3 on the court at all times, right? That kind of seems like the goal, except for that stretch at the end of the third quarter where, again, he ran that weird lineup with just Amen and like Reggie Bullock were your 2 guards. I think he just did that because he wanted to take a look at the starters again at the top of the fourth quarter without worrying about how to stagger the rest or anything. But as far as the first half substitution goes, it was Amen first off the bench, then Jae'Sean Tate and Jock Landale checked in for Dillon Brooks and Alperen Sengun. He came back with Jaylen Green to end the first quarter and then kind of run that second unit of guys during the top of the second quarter, which involved Amen Thompson, Jalen Green, Jae'Sean Tate, Jeff Green, and Jock Landale at one point. And then at one point they subbed out Jae'Sean Tate and brought in Reggie Bullock to add a little bit more shooting to that lineup. And then as the quarter kind of went on, they brought back the starters at one point in kind of like a line switch fashion. Originally it was going to be, I believe Dillon was going to be one of the first guys to check back in. And then the other guys walked up to the scores table. They all came back in at the same time. And then they ran with a lineup actually that included Jae'Sean Tate with the starters in place of Jalen Green for a little while. Then they came back with Jalen and the starters. And then they closed with Amen in place of Jabari Smith Jr. So not that that's going to be the full-blown guaranteed actual substitution pattern, but your 4 guys off the bench I think are very clearly going to be Amen Thompson, Tari Eason in place of Jeff Green, and then one of Jock Landale or Jeff Green, matchups permitting. And then rounding out that group is Reggie Bullock, who will probably get some spot minutes, like 5 to maybe 10 minutes a game. He's the shooter, so it's like, okay, if he's got it going, great, give him more minutes. If he's not got it going, then you just, you tried it with Reggie, no dice. I will say that as far as kind of the minutes distribution goes, I like it. I mean, it very much looks like he's going to be leaning heavily on Amen Thompson off the bench. And while we might not again see, while it might be situational where we see like the Fred, Jalen, Amen lineups, that kind of thing, I think those are pretty much your guaranteed guys. So I don't think Cam Whitmore is going to make the rotation. I get a chance to ask a couple questions about the rotation pregame. Just first off, is Cam Whitmore going to be in the rotation? And Ime kept it, political. He was like, well, it's, we're still not 100% sure yet. And And then later, though, I asked him, are you a coach who believes in a more of a shorter rotation or a longer rotation? And he highlighted the fact that he thinks it's better when you're able to give guys, 9 or 10 minutes a game instead of, a bunch of guys 5 or 6 minutes. And that the majority of guys prefer that. So, when they're able to get a little bit of a longer stretch of run rather than these like quick little bouts in a game. And he said that his sweet spot in the rotation, he said it's really hard to play 11 guys. And so the sweet spot is somewhere around that 9 to 10 mark on any given game, any given night. So that kind of matches the eye test of what we saw with the rotation this go around. And again, he subs Tari Eason back in for the Jeff Green minutes, and then matchup dependent. Maybe it's Jock Landale, maybe it's Jeff Green, but that's kind of your 10 to 11 man rotation that I think we're going to start the season with. And maybe Cam Whitmore has a chance to break into that rotation a little bit further down the line. But those are final thoughts from the Rockets' final preseason game against the Miami Heat. They finished preseason 4-1. Good sign of things to come further down the line for this Rockets team. You be the judge of that. Let me know. Give me some of your thoughts from the Rockets' final preseason game against the Miami Heat. Let me know in the YouTube comments. Let me know who's going to have the craziest pass between Alp and Amen this season. But that's going to do it for today's show. As always, thank you so much for checking things out. If you haven't done so yet, consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.